The sound of your voice echoed in the large, lavish living room. Do you even realize how unbearable you are, Jungkook? All you do is throw orders around like I'm some kind of servant. You came near and crossed your arms tightly around your chest. When you noticed he wasn't even paying attention to what you were saying, you're always out, Jungkook. Late nights, expensive parties, meetings with people I don't even know. Do you ever think about what it's like for me, stuck here in this house all day? Do you even care? Jungkook sat on the couch, stretching his legs out casually, running one hand through his hair as he tried to keep his composure. Here we go again, he muttered under his breath, but you caught it. What did you just say? You asked, stopping mid-step to glare at him. I said, here we go again. He replied, leaning back and crossing his arms, mirroring your stance. The same complaints, the same nagging. Do you even get tired of this routine? Nagging? That's what you call it when I try to talk to you? God forbid I express how I feel in this miserable excuse for a marriage. He caught her from the couch and stepped near you. Miserable for who? You are the one who keeps picking fights over nothing. What exactly do you want from me, huh? You have this house, clothes, food, everything you could ever need. You scoffed in disbelief, nodding your head and took a few steps back. The anger was still visible on your face. Sure, you think these are the only things that are important in a relationship. You have been raised like that. Jungkook didn't even take a second to close the distance between the two of you. His expression suddenly changed. Say that again? His voice was dangerously low, but you didn't even flinch. You are nothing but a spoiled brat who drinks and parties his life away. You have never had to work for anything, never had to struggle a day in your life. You wouldn't survive in the real world for a second. Careful, you're starting to sound like you think you're better than me. He was barely holding back himself. You let out a bitter laugh. Better? If I hadn't been in such a desperate situation, I would never have married someone like you. Really? Don't try to act like you are above this, like you're some pure soul. Don't forget your mother sold you to the highest bidder. His words hit like a slap, and for a moment you froze, the sting of them sinking deep, but you weren't going to back down, not this time. Yeah, my mother did. And look at you, your father had to buy you a wife because you're not even worth anyone choosing you on their own. He scoffed, laughing off his anger and looking at you. Because he's capable. I can choose whoever I want, not sacrifice myself for someone else. This hit the spot and you couldn't control yourself. How dare you to speak to me like that? You said angrily, because I'm your husband and your master. You will respect me, obey me like an obedient wife. Love me the way I want. You scoffed, stepping closer to him. Respect? You want respect. Try doing something to earn it instead of demanding it like a spoiled child who has never worked a day in his life. His jaw clenched and his voice dropped very low. Don't push me, wife. You think you can talk to me like that and walk away unscathed? You are suffocating me just by being here. You froze, the weight of his words hitting you square in the chest. Your voice wavered, but you didn't back down. Suffocating you? Fine. If that's how you feel, I'll do you a favor and leave. Turning on your heel, you stormed upstairs. The sound of drawers opening and closing filled the silence as you packed your belongings into a small suitcase. Jungkook followed, leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed. Where do you think you are going? He asked in a mocking tone. To my parents' house. You snapped, zipping the suitcase shut. At least there I won't be made to feel like I'm some kind of burden. You think running away solves anything? Remember, they didn't think twice before selling you to save your sister. And if you still wanna go, go ahead. Then, see how far you get. You didn't respond, the tears burning behind your eyes refusing to fall. At least I'll be free from someone like you. Saying that, you left without turning back. Jungkook stood there. He wanted to stop you, but he knew this would only create more drama and distance. He let you go for good. It had been a month since your marriage to John Jungkook, and from the very first day you realized that what you had gotten into wasn't a marriage. It was an obligation. It wasn't a union of love or choice, but one born from desperation and survival. You didn't expect things to change overnight, but this, the constant tension, the distance, the silent resentment, it was worse than you imagined. Your life had been a struggle from the start, raised in a world where survival came at the expense of your dignity. You and your sister had endured more pain and suffering than any child should ever know. Your mother, who had lived through the same nightmare, did her best to protect you both, but it was never enough. You were always at the mercy of someone stronger, more powerful, until your worst fear came true. A notorious and influential man set his sights on your sister, and the thought of her being trapped in his world of abuse made your heart ache. Then came the offer. John Jungkook's father, a man whose name echoed through the halls of wealth and power, made a deal with your mother. He would ensure your sister's safety, offer a place far from the clutches of that man, if only you agreed to marry his son. You had no choice. The price of saving your sister's life was your own freedom. And so you married Jungkook, a man you didn't know, whose life seemed so far removed from yours, the spoiled heir of one of the richest families, a man who drank his nights away and had a reputation that made your skin crawl. You had no illusions. You knew this wasn't going to be easy, but you didn't expect it to be this suffocating. From the very first day of your marriage, it was clear that Jungkook didn't view you as an equal. He was used to getting what he wanted, used to people bending to his will, and it didn't take long for you to realize that you were just another part of his world that he could command. When you tried to speak up, to ask him to be considerate or to show some basic respect, he brushed it off. His attitude was one of irritation, as though your words were an inconvenience. Every day felt like a struggle. You tried to be patient, tried to understand the man he was, but it wasn't easy. He was selfish, dismissive, and thoughtless. He came home late, usually drunk, and he expected you to silently accept it. When you voiced your frustration, he would look at you as though you were overreacting. You were just a wife after all, and your place was to follow. And the worst part, you couldn't shake the feeling that his disregard for you wasn't just about who you were, it was because of your past, the life you were forced into. It was as if he thought you owed him for rescuing you from that world, that your marriage to him was a debt to be repaid with obedience. And every time you disagreed, every time you refused to be silent, it felt like he looked down on you more. You hated it. You hated how he expected you to be grateful, how he thought you owed him for giving you a life of luxury when you didn't ask for it. You hated how he assumed you would just fall in line because he was the one who saved you from your past. You hated that you were constantly reminded that this marriage was never about love, it was about control. But the worst part wasn't that he ignored you, it was that he never truly saw you. Not for who you were, not for what you had been through. To him, you were just another possession, another thing to be controlled, like the rest of the world around him, and you hated it. You wanted him to see you, you wanted him to understand that you were more than just a woman, bought and sold to secure his family's safety. But no matter how hard you tried to get him to listen, to see beyond your past, he only seemed to push you further away. You couldn't stand how he treated you, how he acted like he could do whatever he wanted, and you had to just accept it. And yet you felt like you couldn't escape. Where would you go? What could you do? As the days passed, your frustration grew. You were still trapped in this marriage, still stuck in a life that wasn't yours to choose. Jungkook's arrogance, his constant disregards for you, and his assumptions that you would just follow him without question was suffocating. You started to wonder if there was any way to make him see you, to make him understand that you were more than the life you had been born into, but deep down you feared he never would. Fine, you shouldn't have to come here like this. It's not right. You are his wife and you turn towards her, making her stop mid-step. Does that mean I'll let him disrespect me, treat me like a possession handed over to him just because I'm his wife? Your mother flinched at the bitterness in your voice, her face falling as she took a step closer to you. But Ryan, his father helped us. He took us out of that hell. We are living a life we never even thought possible. We should be grateful for everything he has done for us. You might be living that life, Mom, but I'm not. You should know at what cost you got this life, because I sacrificed my life, my happiness for this. And if you don't want me here, fine, I'll go somewhere else, but I'm not going back to him, never. Saying that you turned to walk away, but your mother stopped you. Okay, fine, do whatever you want. I won't speak in the middle, but don't leave. You looked at her. From that day onwards, you started living with your mother, helping her in the small soju shop she runs to earn a living. Your sister went abroad for studies. She was finally free from this life, and you were happy that at least one of you get a chance to live a normal life. Jungkook sat in the dimly lit room, the silence oppressive, like a weight pressing down on his chest. The bottle of whiskey sat on the table before him, untouched. It had been days since he had felt the need to drown out his thoughts with alcohol. His mind was too loud for that now. The emptiness inside him was suffocating and he couldn't escape it. He hadn't expected this, hadn't expected to feel the absence of you so deeply. At first, when you left, he told himself it didn't matter. You were just another person in his life that he could live without. After all, you had come into his world with nothing but bitterness and resentment. And he had treated you the same without a second thought. But now here he was sitting in his room thinking about you and about how you had walked away from him. His fingers gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles turning white. Every night since you left, he found himself thinking of you, imagining your face, your voice, and the way you would look at him with that fire in your eyes when you were angry. Is this how you make people go crazy for you, huh? Once you enter someone's life, you became like oxygen. You just take over everything, and once you're gone, you leave them gasping for air. He let out a bitter laugh. He ran his hand through his hair, feeling frustrated. He stood up, walking to the window, staring at the city outside. It was alive and moving, but he felt empty and alone. He had everything, wealth, power, status, but none of it mattered without you. What do I do now? He muttered to himself, feeling lost. There was no answer. Your voice echoed in his mind, telling him how selfish and spoiled he was. The words hurt, but they were true. He had been focused only on himself, never really caring about anyone else. But now, with you gone, he saw it clearly. Jungkook paced, his thoughts scattered. He had to fix this, had to make things right. He couldn't let you leave him, not now, when he finally understood how much you meant to him. His phone buzzed, but he ignored it. Nothing mattered except you. He picked up the bottle of whiskey but put it back down. What he needed was you. He had to find you, apologize, and do whatever it took to get you back. I'm coming for you, Ryan. I won't let you go. You were busy working, serving drinks, and chatting with customers. This is your life now. You have decided to live in your own terms. But when the door to the small soju shop opened, you felt a cold shiver run down your spine. You looked up and there he was, Jungkook, standing in the doorway. His eyes immediately locked onto yours, and for a split second your heart dropped. But you quickly pushed that feeling aside, reminding yourself that you were still angry. You had every right to be. You turned away, pretending not to notice him. But you couldn't stop the tension building in your chest. Your mother, noticing Jungkook's presence, quietly told you to go serve him. Ryan, he came here for you. Go and talk to him. But you shook your head firmly, not wanting to give him any attention. Don't tell me anything. You grabbed a drink and walked towards his table. You placed it on the surface with a thud, glaring at him for a second and then turning to leave immediately. But before you could take a step, you felt his hand gently wrap around your wrist. Can we talk? His voice was soft, almost hesitant, but you could hear the longing behind it. You pulled your wrist free, jerking your hand away from his grip. I'm not interested, and also leave after this. Without another word, you walked away, leaving him sitting there watching you go. Jungkook knew deep down that you were still angry. He hated that he had caused this, but at the same time, he knew he needed to make things right and he was willing to do whatever it took to fix it. Since that day, Jungkook came to the shop every single day. He would walk in like he owned the place, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on you. No matter how busy you were, he always found a way to make his presence known, whether it was by ordering his usual drink or sitting quietly at a corner table waiting for a chance to speak to you. At first, you ignored him, keeping your distance and doing everything you could to avoid any kind of interaction, but no matter how many times you turned away or pretended not to see him, he kept coming back. He was persistent, and for some reason, the persistence made you angry. But as the days went on, you began to notice something different about him. The careless, spoiled version of Jungkook you had known was no longer there. Instead, he seemed quieter, more focused, and genuinely interested in the small things you did. He wasn't the same man who had brushed you off so easily before. He stopped talking to others as much, always waiting patiently for you to glance in his direction. When you did, he would smile softly, his eyes sincere. He no longer acted like the arrogant, self centered guy he once was. It was as if losing you had made him realize just how much he had taken you for granted. But you remained firm, never giving him the chance to speak, to apologize, or to explain. You couldn't forgive him so easily, and you couldn't allow yourself to fall into the same cycle of hurt and disappointment. So you kept your walls up, even though deep down a small part of you couldn't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, he had changed. Ryan, you closed your eyes frustrated, trying to steady your breath. When you opened them again, you turned towards him, feeling a rush of emotions you had been keeping bottled up. Jungkook followed you into the kitchen, his presence too close, yet you couldn't escape it. What do you want, huh? I told you not to come here. Then why? Why are you still here? Jungkook's voice softened, a mix of determination and vulnerability in his eyes. To take my wife with me. Ryan, please. You scoffed, crossing your arms in disbelief, as if he had just said the most ridiculous thing. Wife? Who? Your slave? Are you missing your toy that your father gifted you, huh? Jungkook's face fell, but his eyes stayed fixed on you. Ryan, please, I'm genuinely sorry for everything. Let's just say I wasn't in my best senses back then, but I've truly realized how I feel for you. I will prove it to you, I swear. Your heart skipped for a moment, but you quickly pushed those feelings down. You weren't ready to let him in again, not after everything. And what have you realized? What do you feel for me? He took a step closer, his eyes never leaving yours, and in that moment, the distance between you both felt like an ocean. But his gaze spoke volumes, tenderness, regret, love, all wrapped up in one. I feel for you the way I've never felt for anyone. You have left an empty spot in my heart that no one else can fill, Ryan. I've fallen for you, and I promise I'll treat you with all the respect you deserve. No more games, no more disrespect. Your breath caught in your throat as his words settled into your heart. You could see the raw truth in his eyes, something you never thought you would see from him. For the first time, he wasn't the spoiled, arrogant man you had once known. He was vulnerable, sincere, and for a fleeting second, you wondered if he really meant it. You think that's enough? You think a few words are going to fix everything? Your voice trembled, but you fought to keep it steady. The hurt and anger you had been carrying for so long bubbled to the surface, and you couldn't contain it anymore. Jungkook's eyes softened, guilt clouding his expression. He took another step towards you, but you didn't back down. I know I can't undo the past, fine, but I'm asking for a chance, a real one, not just as your husband, but as someone who wants to make things right. I've never been serious about anyone like this before, but you have changed everything for me. You felt the sting of his words, and for a moment all you could do was stare at him. The anger inside you wrestled with something else, a longing you hadn't allowed yourself to feel, a crack in your defenses you were terrified to acknowledge. You think you can change just like that? You laughed bitterly, shaking your head. You don't get it, Jungkook. You don't just say sorry and expect everything to be fine. You don't just come here and tell me you love me after treating me like I was nothing. His face hardened for a second, the weight of your words striking him, but his determination didn't falter. He stepped forward again, now so close that you could feel the heat from his body. I know I can't change everything overnight, but I'm willing to spend every day trying, Ryan, because what I have realized is that I don't want to live without you. I don't want to be the man I was before, not if it means losing you. Your heart thumped painfully in your chest, but your mind screamed at you to keep your distance. You didn't want to be weak. You couldn't let him in again. Not after everything, but his gaze, it had shifted. The cocky, careless man you had known was gone, replaced by someone raw and real, someone who was fighting to show you. You could see it in the way he was looking at you, the intensity in his eyes, the vulnerability in his voice. It was the truth, whether you wanted to admit it or not. And what if I don't believe you? What if I can't trust you? Jungkook reached out gently, placing his hand on your arm, the touch soft, almost tentative, as if afraid you would pull away. Then let me show you, Ryan. Let me prove it day by day. I'll earn your trust. I won't stop until I do. Your chest tightened as his words wrapped around your heart, fighting against the walls you had spent so long building. You wanted to say no, you wanted to walk away to protect yourself from the pain, but something inside you was telling you to take the risk, to trust him for once. You looked away, biting your lip to hold back the flood of emotions threatening to spill. I don't know, Jungkook. I just don't know if I can do this. Jungkook's hand tightened on your arm, pulling you slightly towards him. His voice was low and earnest. I understand if you're scared, Ryan. I don't expect you to forget everything, but I'm asking for a chance to make it right. You met his gaze again, searching his eyes for any trace of the man who had hurt you, but all you saw was the man who was fighting for you, who was willing to change for you. It wasn't easy to admit, but you knew deep down that there was something real in his words. With a sigh, you closed your eyes, your heart at war with itself. You get one chance, Jungkook. One. Don't waste it. Jungkook's eyes softened with relief, a small but genuine smile tugging at his lips. He stepped back slightly, giving you space, but you could still feel the warmth of his presence. For the first time, it felt like there was hope. I won't, I promise. In the end, your love story with Jungkook became one of healing and growth. From a marriage built on circumstance to one forged in understanding, you both learned that love isn't about perfection, but about the willingness to change and choose each other despite the past. Though your struggles, you found a deeper connection, proving that love, when nurtured, can heal even the deepest wounds.